Welcome everyone back to hair tissue mineral analysis. I have a really interesting live stream today that I think you might really enjoy. This page, hair tissue mineral analysis, is such an important page and such an important part of helping you to find out, to figure out the real genuine root of what's going on. Now, hair testing labs have been around for at least 35 years. The lab that I use is called Trace Elements, and it's owned by Dr. Watts. He and I talk together by phone, by email. I've extensively read many books by PhDs in chemistry, other than Dr. Watts, and also from Dr. Watts. And I've come to a place where for 35 years I've provided coaching, and then bringing hair tissue testing or tissue mineral analysis in just gives us a much more clear and even a faster way to figure out the root. Now, today I'm going to be talking about a young man who was tested on 12/14 of 2017. So we're a year and a half, out of testing and getting the result. Your results are going to take about 2 weeks from the time that I get your hair collection, whether it's scalp hair, ancillary hair, meaning guys on your chest, pubic hair, or it could be finger or toenail clippings. In that order, scalp hair is preferred, the ancillary or the pubic hair is a second choice, and then the nail clippings and such would be the last choice. But I've done tests with all of those different types of tissue samples, and they all come out really phenomenal. The thing is, this kind of testing is affordable. It's $135 for the test, or $175 if you buy my grand opening special, where you get the test itself and everything mailed to you. You don't even have to pay for postage. And then you're also going to get a 30-minute coaching consult with me following or before if you need it immediately. I have a lady that's on the West Coast that is doing a coaching with me at 10 o'clock tonight because it's 8 o'clock her time. And she has had really phenomenal results. Another man in North Carolina, and many, many people in the Twin Cities in the West Coast area. So 22-year-old male diagnosed with opioid abuse disorder. This might be something that's new to you or unfamiliar, but it is so pervasive right now. It is absolutely everywhere. Opioids, opiates, methamphetamine, and many, many other chemicals, Xanax and fentanyl in particular, are making their way out onto the streets from a lot of these different underground sources, like we talked about yesterday in the video, if you did or did not watch that. So this was done 12/14 of 2017 is when I submitted everything and the report was done. Now, we don't always know our bloodline, but most of us, many of us, maybe not most, know our blood type. I know my blood type. I know this person's blood type. I know many of my clients' blood type because I ask it and I have it on my wellness form. But it's also a factor, not just because of what Dr. Adamo has written, but for many, many different reasons, because it has a lot to do with you. So bloodline, blood type, right? So now I'll put my glasses on because I've got a couple notes here. Your hair tissue, unlike your blood type, is going to be extremely unique to you, right? If you're dyeing your hair currently, then you probably want to use pubic hair or fingernails, or wait for your hair to grow out a little bit, because we don't want to test your hair if you've got hair dye on it, because it'll change the result. As I was going over this person's patient report, everyone who does a hair test is going to get a patient report, and it's going to give all of this information about your minerals, your toxic or heavy metals, your metabolic type, ratios, meaning that there are stimulating and sedating minerals that are like the spark plugs of your body. So copper and zinc, calcium and magnesium. One is stimulating and one is sedating. So they kind of work together as like a pump. Okay, so copper is going to make you much more emotional and empathic and tuned in and creative, kind of like how you think of a right brain person. Zinc, which is related to progesterone, is going to make you much more like the Tin Man. It's going to make you more logical, analytical, and grounded. And I think I mentioned yesterday, I'll mention it again, that I use zinc in my water because my copper levels tested at a 4.8. And ideally, we want your copper to be at a 2.5. And that means you can have yourself really balanced. So I use zinc in my water. It's, tasteless. You can add a couple droppers full. But the way to find out if you feel like you're teary and emotional and your moods are just up and down all the time, you really want to do this for yourself. So going into this person's patient report, this one is an anonymous, okay? The calcium to magnesium, that's that ratio we talked about again. Both of those showed me something, right? So if I'm looking at how am I going to help someone who's got an addiction disorder in the allopathic terminology, the magnesium was super, super low. So the calcium was just driving a lot of excitatory. The magnesium wasn't there to calm. If you're missing magnesium for long enough years, you could get headaches, migraines, all the way into psychosis-looking behavior. I mean, missing your magnesium is something that's so common that even your primary care doctor will usually tell you most people are magnesium deficient. You need magnesium to help you to remove a lot of the toxicities in your body, including the toxic elements. So the first thing is I noted on the report in the very first column, in the first two sections, because everything is listed on there, it's so easy to read. And the extra interpretation by a coach like myself is just going to help you to expedite and get right to what you need to do. So the magnesium, super low. So I asked, did you have headaches? Yes, I did. I had a lot of migraines. Okay, then we're going to fix all that. Okay. Excess, I looked down, and the next item that really caught my eye was the sodium to potassium, the Na to K. So you see the abbreviation under it, and then it's written underneath that, sodium or potassium. So you can Google it, you can look it up in your books. It's very clearly written on your patient report. The sodium and potassium were both skyrocketed on this report. I made a phone call to Dr. Watts and I said, help me to really understand what's going on here, because I want to grow in my ability to be able to decipher. And he said, eventually, as you do this long enough, and with all of your great ripe experience with coaching for 35 years, as long as the lab's been around, you'll begin to see an emotional profile for every test. Well, that's really big for me, as I'd shared with Dr. Watts, is that I am a person who really loves the art form of mind-body medicine, so that I can find the connective reason between the thoughts and the manifestation. Or like Dr. John Sarno talked about, oxygen deprivations that are created throughout the body based on stress and tension in the mind. And they go to predictable areas in the body, okay? So I have an entire course on that called Crucial Keys to Unlocking Disease. But so the first thing I noticed was the calcium to magnesium. The second thing I noticed was the sodium and potassium were super high. And Dr. Watts said that's indicative of addictive personality traits. So bingo, there was another thing, because what was this client's major focus was opioid abuse disorder, okay? Sodium, when it's excessive, blunts the ability to relax. Sodium blunts the ability to relax. So it keeps you keyed up. It keeps you kind of, really, it's very, very stimulating, okay? Where the potassium is very relaxing, right? You've heard people say, eat a banana so you can kind of solve some of your cramps and things like that. So now moving along, I noted magnesium was way too low. I noticed the sodium and potassium had what Dr. Watts called addictive personality traits, could be found in those both being super elevated. Now I go over and I see the copper level is a 0.8. Oh my goodness. That's pretty evident to me, because now that's someone who's going to get very, very left brain, very logical and analytical, very rigid And it's what I see with a lot of my clients that end up with Parkinson's disease and lack of neuroplasticity, and people that end up with neurodegenerative diseases like dementia and Alzheimer's. They start to lose that plasticity and that fun and that bounce in their life that copper, which is so estrogen, will provide for you. So now I said to myself, copper is a 0.8, and I need it up to at least a 2.5 so that person can start to think and feel and make better decisions to come outside of addiction. But how are we going to do that when someone is really entrenched in left brain thinking and without those levels of magnesium and copper to help them to relax enough to sort through and hear what I have to say? Okay. Next, I look down on the bottom column on the very first page of 10 to 12 pages of the patient report, and what did I see? I saw really markedly elevated by 13% levels of tin in the body. So it makes me want to ask some questions. Are you eating off of a lot of aluminum foil, right? Or eating a lot of prepackaged foods? Things like that. You know, what's going on in your life that is bringing this, so we could figure this out. Now, as I look down, I'm looking at my notes here. The next page talks about your metabolic type, right? And in this case, this person had come into their slow 1, 2, 3, and 4. And each one is very clearly written about right underneath it, so you have a good understanding. And if you don't, I'm here for you as a coach. Now, this person's report with opioid abuse disorder, this young person of 22 in 2017, had a slow metabolic type number 4. And what that means is that they had increased secretion of thyroid hormones and increased secretion of adrenal hormones. So a slow number 4 was on its way to becoming fast. As I mentioned in my book, Detox and Heal Your Thyroid, that is such a practical guide to not only just healing your thyroid, but detoxing and healing you entirely, is that once you've been slowed down for too long, your body will start to go into a cry for help, and it will go in from hypo or slow thyroid into fast racing hyperthyroid, okay? Your adrenals are busted, your thyroid is exhausted. There's trains going by, so the dogs are barking outside. So this person was doing that. Now, underneath it, it also said that a slow type 4 metabolism is someone who's really had prolonged physical and or emotional stress, right? A lot of stress going on. And that could really aptly describe a lot of our young people and how they feel, okay? And I went next to a section called Your Health Trends. And your health trends are a projection based upon everything in your report, what your nutritional minerals, your toxic elements, your metabolic type, how your body is entirely functioning, what is going on right now or is anticipated to happen for you. And in this case, it was on a 0 to 8 scale. Depression was at an 8. So see, this person was no longer able to relax and think from a right brain and think creatively. They were off in the brain of the Tin Man, right? This mental rigidity that I can honestly help you with. No matter what the diagnosis name is, what's really going on underneath all of this is a cry for help. Your own body is saying, help, I need help. So hyperthyroid, not hypo, but fast thyroid, was at about a half between the 0 and the 1. So it was starting to make its way into this person's life. And 1 year later, in December of 2018, the person was temporarily diagnosed with hyperthyroid. The TSH went way, way down low, where if it goes really high, you usually have a slow thyroid, but when it goes very, very low, it's usually that the thyroid's going fast because it's got to come from your pituitary. And when you start to just deplete yourself so much, for example, if you're using opioids are very endocrine imbalancing. So as Matthew Finch talked about in the course that I took, the Ultimate Opiate Detox 2.0, great course if you're going to be working with people that have opioid abuse issues, opioid addiction. So opiate and opioids are the same thing, but opioids mean the whole classification of the analogs and synthetics, as well as what's being dispensed in the medical world today. So basically, he mentioned that you can get an opioid-induced, big, huge words, endocrinopathy. And in my words, because I like to un-Harry Potter everything, is if you're going to use opioids for quite a while, it's going to take your testosterone and your hormones down, and your endocrine system is all about your hormones. They're your messengers, okay? So the report further, without going into too much detail about this report, but except for what you really needed to know, it's going to list contraindications. Again, there's another really big word that just means what you shouldn't be doing, right? So in this case, you shouldn't be taking B this and B that, and you shouldn't be taking cod liver oil, and you shouldn't be, and it's got a list on there so that if you're thinking, well, maybe I should take that supplement, that one sounds really good, it may be contraindicated for you to do that, okay? It'll also list the foods that you are going to benefit you and foods that you really want to avoid right now, based on all the foods, not just a plant-based or a vegan or a keto, but in consideration of what anyone might really want to eat, okay? So what did I glean from this report that is life-saving? And it causes me, I can take my reading glasses off now, it causes me, frankly, to wonder when I see our detox centers, excuse me, my throat's kind of cloggy here. When I see our detox centers and we bring, young men in like this for 28 days or 45 days, 60 days, or high intensity treatment centers, residential treatment centers that are maybe even 90 days, is we bring them in, we acclimate them to the program, and we schedule them throughout their whole day. So for parents, family, siblings, partners, there's a whoosh, a big sigh of relief that, my goodness, I'm so thankful that this person's going to be able to be safe. I know they're not using. I know that they're going to be sleeping at night. I know they're going to regenerate, and I'm just going to pray that they come to their senses. Okay. But what we're not doing at these centers is we're not really investing in something like I could be doing, which is figuring out, why did this person start self-medicating? Where was the real pain coming from? Now, I know that we can't have all of these psychologists and everyone in, and we can't have all this because, well, people aren't making a whole lot of money, but we're making thousands of dollars to house people in dorm-style treatment centers where we could be thinking about the nutrition, detoxification, and also what we're thinking about. So instead of, feeding cafeteria-style food, it could be a much more cooperative environment where the participants actually end up learning how to carry over these habits when they leave the treatment center. But that's not what's happening today. I've actually viewed about 4 different treatment centers in the state of Minnesota, and while they were all, fairly nice, some were much better than others, like the University of Minnesota at Fairview Lodging Plus was phenomenal. What I'm not seeing is we're not addressing something that is so obvious to me now in my 35 years of coaching and my many years, like this was done in 2017, of providing hair testing, which is toxic brain, neurotoxicity, missing out on some of the supplements because we cannot count on the fact that our young people have eaten a diet that's going to give them the minerals that they need. So as my example yesterday, and it's an example I use quite often, if someone grew up and they were having baby formula and on to the, creamy rice cereal, which is essentially glue, and then they're on to pre-made foods, and they're on to, sandwiches and crackers and energy drinks and burritos and Taco Bell and fast foods, right? eventually that person is going to run out of fuel. And so this is why there's such a large market to market energy to people. Well, eventually when they don't get the energy and their self-esteem is really down low, and they don't want to just go take some kind of next anti-anxiety or antidepressant, it makes them feel really shut down. They know they feel like crap. So they go out onto the streets, or the classic case, which was for my family, is they had an accident and they ended up being given opioids as pain relief because it was necessary following a surgery, right? Broken bones and surgery. And now the feeling of having that anxiety quell and that depression just kind of go away for a little bit drives them into seeking that same feeling again and again. So what we need to be doing as an elder to the younger populations right now, to the treatment centers, is I'd really love to be able to give this medicine that I've worked so long for, putting the mind body, the hair tissue testing, the coaching, the detoxification, the body work that I did for 16 years in a tiny, small Minnesota city, and everything together has taught me a wealth of insights. So I don't know if you have any questions, or you might be watching this later tonight and have some questions that you want to ask. I encourage you to jot them down below, or book a coaching session with me. Order your own hair test, and you will be absolutely amazed at the insights that it will provide for you. Now, maybe you're looking at a hair test that you might have ordered already, and you're like, well, so, duh. I mean, my calcium's low, and this is what, and it tells me to buy these supplements. Well, that's what I'm here for. I'm here to hold your hand and be on the screen with you one-on-one or in person at my professional space if you're in Minnesota, and to go over it, not line by line, but to make really good use of your time between my reading your wellness form before we start at naturallywithkaren.com. That's my website. And right under the coaching tab is a tab called your wellness form. So you can fill that wellness form out online and click submit. It goes to my email. And before we're spending any of your time or money, I'm reading through the whole thing. I'm looking at your hair tissue report, or we start before you get it. And I'm able to help you to do the pieces that you can do so that you can form a team with you and I and your doctors or specialists or whomever it is that you have helping you. Maybe it's just you, that's how I have done things over my lifetime. So this was just a short live stream. I hope that you've enjoyed it. 22-year-old, taken 12/14/2017. Opioid abuse disorder is what it's called in the allopathic world. And that is someone that has continued to use their self-medication and developed a chronic habit with opioids. Opioids are heroin and fentanyl and certain pills like Vicodins. I think Percocets are in there too. But the biggest scare is the fentanyl, because the fentanyl is, 100 times stronger than a lot of the heroin. So thank you for joining me. I hope that you get something out of each one of these. And the more people that we can get to support this, the more I am able to, delve more with you and give you a lot more of my time. Thank you. You have a blessed day.